Okay, I think we're live. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, wherever you are in the world. How are you? My name is Lacey Dawson. I am a mother, I'm a wife. I am also the creator of Jubilee Mama Empowerment, which is a support group for moms of infants and toddlers to age 3 and also moms to be to help them in their motherhood journey, to give them community support and resources and to empower them. So I'm excited that this is our third live presentation. This is going to be an awesome one. I have a great presenter today, someone I look up to. She's fantastic. And I'll let her introduce herself in a minute. But I just want to say if anyone does join the broadcast, please let StreamYard have access to your Facebook. So that way, if you want to comment or post anything, just allow them the access. That way we know who's talking and then we can answer questions at that time. So I'm going to have the presenter introduce herself. And I'll just say that I met her in a wonderful program from Smart Success Healthcare 9.0. So I'm so excited about that. So her name is Mary Kostka, and she's going to talk about sleep training. So go ahead, Mary, introduce yourself. Let us
Sure.
know your occupation, what you do, how long you've been doing it, and also tell us what it is you do.
Sure. Hi. Thanks for having me, Lele. It's
Yeah,
so fun.
yeah.
Fun to be here. So, I'm an occupational therapist, and I have primarily worked with children in my career of 31 years. That means I'm old. I'm 55 already.
You're not old. You're not old.
And and I have two boys. So, they are both, well, one just graduated college and one's in college. So, and they're part of my education today. I will tell you all about. I remember very well when they were not sleeping and and all of that good stuff.
Nice.
Um, so I have a private practice, Ohana OT, and I've had that for about 10 years. I did about 17 years of school therapy. I've worked for the Birth to Three Center too, so I got to have lots of time with moms and their babies in their homes. And um, what else do you want to know? I could talk forever just
Yeah.
about
Well,
life. So,
for anyone that doesn't know what occupational therapy is, maybe you can explain that too as
oh,
well,
sure,
so they
sure.
would know exactly what you do
Yeah,
and
definitely.
Mhm.
So, a lot of people are familiar with occupational therapy in terms of like if you're in the hospital and you had a stroke, and the occupational therapist is going to help you get back to your daily living, the things you do day to day. So they might be helping you with like getting dressed or being able to brush your teeth or just simple things like that, or being able to even like cook your own meal or be able to be safe taking medication. So I think now, I mean, when I started my career, nobody even had that point of reference, but most people have that point of reference. They know somebody that maybe has had OT that way, but where a lot of people don't really know OT is in pediatrics. So the occupational therapist, the main job is to help them with their meaningful activities of their life. And that means we can help with pretty much everything. With children, it usually has to do with meeting their developmental milestones, uh, being able to, for especially the older kids, attention, learning, behavior kinds of things. Um, so basically, the kids' occupations are their daily living things, like sleep is one. So that's why we're going to talk about sleep. Um, but being able to play, make friends, social skills, um, being able to feed yourself, being able to just sit in a chair in school. I
Right,
have a lot of kids
right.
that have a goal of being able to sit like for 15 minutes because
Oh, yeah.
they'll come in and they can't even sit for 1 minute. That's really common because I work with my specialty area is sensory integration, and so most of those kids are bouncing off the walls and have a really hard time in school. So um, yeah. So does that kind of answer it a little bit?
I think that answers it. Yeah, yeah. So you do some awesome and amazing work. So I want you to go ahead and just go into the
Sure.
sleep training and let us know what us moms can do to get our kids and our little babies and toddlers to sleep at night.
I know. Well, here's my favorite quote um, to start us off. Sleep is the regenerative force of life. And I love that because I was pretty sleep deprived for about 5 years.
Oh my
And
gosh.
I remember hitting that like 3 hour mark when I got to sleep for 3 hours and I started to feel human, you know?
Wow.
So I read that in something and it just stuck in my head. I'm like, it's the regenerative force of life. Yes,
Yes,
I'm coming back
yes.
to life.
Agreed.
So your sleep is, probably even more important than the baby sleep because, you get crazy, if you
Hmm.
don't get sleep, so whether it's getting help so that you can go get some sleep,
Right.
um, or, just helping your baby get better sleep. So sleep's a regenerative force of life. So how I'm going to approach this little talk is the tale of three moms, myself and two friends, because
Okay.
I think it's really important to realize like how different kids are
Right.
and that they turn out fine.
Right.
And
Right.
because you get so much conflicting information, it's so overwhelming. So I'm going to tell you the choices that we made and how we were all different from each other.
Okay.
So the tale of three moms, and then I'm going to cover four main areas to consider when it comes to sleeping. And so one is medical, like, ruling out any medical concerns a child might have, sensory things, routine environment factors that can help, and then also just what's normal, developmental norms, because um, there's there's a babies actually it's normal for them to wake up a lot. So
Right. Right.
you know
Exactly.
so I think we have to be careful what we're wishing for because
Uh-huh.
you have to look at what's normal too.
Exactly.
um, so I'll start with the tale of the three moms. So my my neighbor and my really good friend Kathy and I were pregnant at the same time. Our due dates were just days apart, but our kids were born 3 weeks apart, and they couldn't have been more different. So we went to Lamaze together and everything, and then we have these two babies, our first. They were both firstborn, and they were so completely different. She had a sleeper. I mean, she had to wake up her kid to feed
Wow.
Brecklin, and I mean, she just slept all the time. I'm like, what is this? Because my son Lukash,
Hmm.
he woke up every little thing. He was always hungry. He, didn't like the feeling if he peed a little bit, he was freaking out. Well, it turns out he had sensory stuff going on, so he was very sensitive. Um, and he was just always, I have this memory of going to their house for dinner, and they were both in their, now we know we're not supposed to just have them hanging out. Well, actually, they were awake, so I guess it was okay. Hanging out in their car seats, and they were kind of like just hanging out while we had dinner.
Hmm.
And she's like conking out and sleeping, and mine's waking up. And anyway, in like a 6 hour period, I fed and changed my kid 3 times, and she like did once. And I'm like, wow, I am working so much harder than her. And she's getting sleep. I'm like, these kids are totally different.
Yeah.
And then my other friend, Sloan, she had a lot of sleep issues herself, and and so she ended up doing I forgot what exactly what it's called, but it's like the cried out method, like where she
Right.
had to have him in the other room because she couldn't sleep if he was in the room. It was, and I couldn't sleep if my child was in a different room.
Right.
So, so really what happened is through this experience, like all judgment is like gone. The bottom line is you got to do what gets the most people the most sleep.
Hmm.
And, it wasn't my choice to do that method, but it really, she would have gone insane if she didn't do that method
Right.
because she literally couldn't sleep if he was in the room. And what happened with me is that because they were waking up so much, this was really for both of them. I was so exhausted. I'm nursing, I'm up and I'm down, I'm in and out of the bed. And then a friend of mine said, you can just lay with them and nurse them in the bed, and then you're not having to like get all the way up. And I made sure everything was safe. It's like not extra fluffy bedding. And later what I did is I got one of those side by sleeper things, so it's
Hmm.
safer. Um, and I had read a lot about co-sleeping, and I know it's all very controversial. Both sides are controversial. If you co-sleep, if you cry it out, all this stuff is so
Right.
controversial.
Right.
I mean, you could find pros and cons for all of it. And that's why I'm telling these three stories, because the bottom line is you have to do what gets everybody the most sleep.
Hmm.
That's the right answer.
Hmm.
Not what your friends say, not what your family says, not what all the books that contradict each other say.
Right.
You have to look at what is really working and of course make it safe. And so for me, I also had a lot of fears and I had to hear him breathing to fall asleep myself.
Right.
And I also a lot of times had to be touching him. And so the site, my husband built one. You can buy them now, but so we just were like, okay, this is, I guess, how I need to do this as a new mom. So then we got the side by sleeper, and it was all very safe, and I could just lay there and have my hand on him, and then I could fall asleep. My friend Sloan, she'd never fall asleep if that's what she did. So, and Brecklin is just sleeping the whole time. And we're like, what is this? This is not fair. We're like exhausted and all this stuff. So, all the kids, like Lukash just graduated from college, and
Yes.
Brecklin graduated about 6 months ago, and Treat, my friend Sloan, the one that had to cry it out and all that, um, she she followed. I forgot what method she followed, but she followed this method of basically getting him more used to being on his own. And he was an exchange student in Japan last year, and he's at
Wow.
University of Washington right now. Guess
Mhm.
what? They all turned out fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's the thing. I mean, you gotta because I think we're all worried we're going to screw our kids up if we do it wrong, you know?
Right. 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 Right.
So anyway, you just gotta, um, you really gotta do what gets everybody the most sleep and worry less about what other people think. And, uh, and that worked.
I think that's pretty encouraging too for a lot of moms because they want to know the exact thing what to do. And like you said, everyone's different. Every mom is different. Every baby is different. And you have to find out what works for you, what works for the
Mhm.
family, and what keeps you sane, And,
Yeah.
even with my daughter, she's only 15 months. She's a little bit over 15 months. And she'll be 16 months, I think, next week. And she will wake up several times a night because she's teething and she likes to have her binky. So she's in the crib next to my bed and it's like crying. I wake up maybe two, 3 times a night and I'm just like, I can't sleep. I need sleep. And sometimes she's fine. Sometimes she'll sleep the entire night. So it's all different. And
Yeah.
that works for us. That works for us. And like you said, we shouldn't be made to feel, I guess, guilty or
Mm,
compare. Don't compare yourself to other families, other moms. There's research out there. Look at it, but do what's right for you. So
yeah. And that's my point because trust me, I was the mom that read everything
mhm,
and put a lot of pressure on myself. And I never planned to co-sleep or I never planned, but I didn't know I wasn't going to be able to fall asleep if I couldn't hear him breathing and I couldn't touch him. I mean, you find all kinds of things about yourself you had no idea.
yes,
So, I had to do what was right for myself and my friend had to do what was right for herself and you just want to make sure you're being safe about it all. But
right,
um, yeah, yeah. And I think it's impossible to do it right because I mean, right,
right,
because no matter what you choose, there's going to be some buddy or some research or something that says you're wrong. I mean,
exactly.
it's kind of a hard time to be a mom, I think, because of all that information. So it's really overwhelming. So you have to just kind of sit back and go, okay, what's working and what feels right and what's getting everybody the most sleep because sleep
Hmm.
is a regenerative force of life.
Yes.
So, but some things to think about are a lot of people don't actually think about medical issues. And one really common medical issue is reflux that's
Hmm.
very invisible. That the kids, it's coming up, it's burning, it's not coming out, so you don't really notice it, and then it's coming back down. And because we're not putting our babies on their tummies, just if we were putting them on their tummies, that just the positioning of their little bodies that happens less.
Hmm.
And so there's there's a special, for kids that have it really bad, there's a special sleeper that's kind of like a wedge that,
Yes.
and where they kind of are angled. And I'm not sure how they, deal with all the safety concerns about back to sleep and all that with that. But I mean, some kids, it's like what they have to do, that they have to be like angled on their tummy. And you think about it, like if you're reclined in your chair and they're laying on their tummy on your chest and they're fine, but then you lay them on their back and they're not fine, that might be something to talk to the doctor about and say, can can we figure out if there's maybe some kind of reflex thing going on? But it's probably one of the most common things that gets missed.
Hmm.
Um, so, and I would just say, just talk to your doctor if you have any concerns. If there's any like sounds that sound different, um, depending on the age of the child, but snoring would not be normal. So
Right.
so if you're just hearing like weird sounds, because what happens is sometimes their tonsils and adenoids are too big, affecting the airway, and then they lay down, and that's when it's more noticeable. Or you can have like an iron deficiency that's going to affect sleep. Um, some kids, especially if they have Down syndrome, their tongue is too wide, and then it's kind of like blocking the airway. So you just want to rule out any kind of medical things if you're just having that feeling like something is not right. It wasn't until first grade, but my son Lukash had, I just heard him like gasping for air, and I like went in. I'm like, what is going on? And he was just like, like that. And so I videotaped it and I brought him in like right away, and he had to get his tonsils and adenoids out. He was basically choking in his sleep.
Wow.
So yeah, so that was so there's just things that a lot of times you just don't think, well, there could be a problem, but you also have to kind of look at what's developmentally normal for waking up, which we'll get to that. So the second area is sensory. So I specialize with the kids that have sensory processing problems, and so certain things can make them very uncomfortable. Certain sounds or smells or these things can make them very comfortable. So I'm just going to talk about like different sensory things to think about. So certain smells, you might notice that that they're more happy around certain smells. So lavender is a very calming smell, and consistency. We'll talk about that next. But if you can have something that's the same all the time, that helps them get into a sleep routine. So you just want to be thinking about, like, I don't know, I'm just randomly thinking of something like, what if you like wiped everything down with Clorox before they went to bed, and then that's what they're
Right.
smelling? You know what I mean? Just stuff like
Right.
that. You just want to like think about it. Like, what does this place smell like?
Right.
Um, Sounds, the normal mommy stuff, like singing a lullaby to sleep, that is very powerful. If you're not a singer, play some music. I really like, I recommend a lot the instrumental lullaby. If you type in instrumental lullaby in Pandora, there's some really good music that's just very calming. Um, so having like and that kind of ties into routine. If you have like a nighttime song that you play every time they go to bed, that helps them tie that together. But it's also just kind of calms their nervous system. And then another thing is lighting. It really just depends on the child. Like, if they're going to do better if it's really dark, if they need a night light. I really like the little babies aren't going to see that far, but as they're older, they would see farther if you have like lights on the ceilings. For some of my kids that are more like 3, 4 years old, some of them will do better with like a moving light. So like you can get for like $10 on Amazon these little disco lights, like a little
Hmm.
party light.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of mesmerizing because the lights just kind of move real slow. And we have one child that kind of freaks out when they wake up. And so we actually have that going. So when he wakes up, he sees what he saw when he went to bed.
Hmm.
And it's kind of also a distraction. He's kind of like, oh, look at that.
Hmm.
So just lighting is something to consider. You think of touch and the power of touch, you know, you're, you're, you're stroking or you're patting or, you just naturally, intuitively do all these things. So pay attention to what's really calming to your child, and that might be part of the little bedtime routine. Like, some kids like a little like stroking on their back, or a little patting, or maybe they like their little feet squeezed, or just think about touch.
Mhm.
And then also, maybe it's like their favorite blankie and how it feels, and also how it smells.
Right.
See, a lot of people don't think about, like, well, why do they get these items that they're attached to? Well, think about it. It feels a certain way, it um, smells a certain way, and that's like a constant, like a makes the brain feel like everything's okay because I know what to expect, and this is something familiar to me. Um, and then there's movement to consider, and we're all pretty natural with babies to kind of like, oh, do they like the up and down? Do they like the side to side? Do they like the, you know, just what do they like? And I can remember just like when my baby's not there, like doing the thing that they like, and you're like, what am I doing? But you're used to doing it so much. But it's something that it's a vestibular input, and that what's usually most calming is like linear, so like up and down or straight swinging.
Okay.
Um, going in circles is going to be more like revving them up kind of thing. Um, so, um, and then pressure, of course, some babies will like do better if you swaddle them really tight. I had two boys. One I nicknamed Wiggle Worm, and the other one I nicknamed Snuggle Monkey. Which one do you think liked the swaddling?
Obviously, the snuggle was.
My first one, Lukash, that was his first nickname, was Snuggle Monkey, because he loved being the burrito baby.
Yes.
And he'd just be like, "Oh, this
Yes.
is perfect." And then Nikolai's like, and he'd like wiggle
Like, get
himself
me out
out.
of there. Yes, that's my
He's like,
daughter.
"I'm out of here."
That's my daughter. Give me my arms.
And to this day, Lukash, my snuggle monkey, he's back from college, and he'll like lay on the couch and snuggle with me. You know, he'll
Yeah.
like lay his legs over my legs, or we're touching each other.
Mhm.
And Nikolai is kind of like, I'll go sit over here. So it's so
But
fun.
it never leaves them, obviously, from
Mm,
the time they're born, and then later on you see the same thing
yeah,
but in a different way. Yes.
I think that's the coolest thing, when you end up having, if you have more than one, is that just seeing how much has nothing to do with how you parent.
Right.
Just like their own individual preferences and personalities come out. And I find that really fascinating.
Awesome.
Okay, so then routine. I was just checking the time. What are we doing? An hour?
Whatever you like.
Oh, okay.
Whatever you
I
like.
think we're doing good on our
We're
time.
doing good, yes.
So those are just sensory things to consider, and just kind of like breaking it down in your mind, like, what seems to calm them, and what do they like. And I think parents do that pretty intuitively already, but just gives you a little bit more to think about. And then the environment and their routine can really help with, I think we all know, especially with everything we've all been through, how disruptive it is when our routines are pulled are aren't there anymore.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Like, we don't know what to expect the next day. How did that feel? Like this whole pandemic thing, the first thing I thought about was I'm getting to know what it feels like to be my kids that I work with.
Hmm.
Because just that adrenaline, like, there'd be one more announcement of some change or shift, and then the adrenaline would you'd feel the fight in your body. You'd be like, what's going on? And
Right.
then, and so that's why, I mean, it starts when they're little. They love routine. They love to know. The brain doesn't like change. The brain likes to know what to expect.
Exactly.
And then that's going to help calm them down. And so, um, as they get older, I mean, they're kind of dictating the routine because of, they waking up so much in the beginning. But as time goes on, you kind of start picking your bedtime, and you want your bedtime to be kind of early. If they stay up too late, it's harder for them to fall asleep.
Right.
Um, it gets a little tricky with toddlers because of the whole napping thing. Both my boys did exactly the same thing. At 2.5 months,
Mhm.
they stopped taking naps and never took another nap.
Wow.
And I just remember like my one big meltdown, like I thought I was going over the edge, was when I had a 1 month old, and the 2.5 year old decided he wasn't taking any more naps. And I just lost it because I was just like, and my mom had just left. She was with me for like a month. And I'm like, oh, am I going to do this?
Yeah, yeah.
And I was like, flopping. I'm like, please take a nap. I was like freaking out.
Uh-uh.
Like that was going to help.
Yes, yes. It's like, no,
But
we're not taking naps.
nope. Naps were done for the
Yeah.
rest of their lives at two
Oh
and a
my.
half until they became teenagers.
Oh, oh
So,
my.
but that's when they started sleeping through the night. So, they say have like a quiet time if they're not taking a nap. So I did that. Like you got to have like a rest time.
Right.
Um, but yeah, from that point on, that's when they started sleeping all night long. So I was like, oh, okay. Well, okay. That's my trade-off. All kids are different, but both my kids did that. Um, so, so we talked about having like in the routine or in the environment, thinking about like familiar things that are there. Um, and then I wrote something about feeding times. It really depends on the age. I mean, a lot of that waking up through the night when they're little is because of the eating. Um, but as they get older, you don't want them eating too late in the evening because that'll wake them up. Um, I did a little I'm like I had my base of knowledge, but before doing this, I'm like, I think I'll like do a little research and see what else is out there. And there was one really cool tip that I came across that I never thought about because they were talking about kids that sometimes wake up a lot because they have like this tension built up in their body, and they said getting them to laugh a lot
Mm-hmm.
helps release the tension,
Okay.
especially a baby. So I thought that's kind of a fun tip,
Yeah.
you know, just making sure you get lots of I think I wouldn't do it like right before they're going to bed because you might like amp them up, but
Uh-huh.
like just making sure as part of the winding down process in the beginning of it, maybe just getting lots of laughter and that releases tension. I thought that was kind of fun.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
Um, and then, some people feel like, oh, it has to be perfectly quiet. Um, it really depends on your child. Some kids do better with some white noise. If they can fall asleep with a lot of noise around them, then that's easier because you don't have to be like, everybody be quiet, don't wake the baby.
Right.
But so don't feel like it has to be perfectly quiet, but it really just depends on the child. But I think consistency is again the thing that's going to help them fall asleep the most and stay
Mm-hmm.
asleep.
Okay.
um, and then developmental norms. So up to 11 months old, it's normal for them to wake 2 to 6 times a night.
Wow.
It's just normal.
Yeah.
And so I came across a really cool I'm not going to go through like every age and what's normal, but um, there's a really cool website called, I thought I wrote it down. It is called babysleep.com,
Mm-hmm.
and it's super cool. It's written by doctors, and it has like each month up to 36 months what's normal
Okay, that's good.
and really cool tips.
Okay.
It's called babysleep.com, and it was just really nice to kind of read through it. And I thought, it's so cool because it's month by month to 36 months. So you can look and see what is typical. Because I think, when you think about like the whole first year of life, waking every two to 6 times. See, I had the 6 time a night kid
Mm-hmm.
because I was like pretty thrilled when I got to 3 hours of sleep. Um, but that was actually normal. So,
I'm
um,
gonna add that to the comment section too.
oh,
Yeah,
babysleep.com.
yeah, BBC app. So if anyone wants to take a look at that, they can
Yeah.
click on it, or they can just get it from the video. I think that's a good resource to have. Definitely.
I think the hard thing about what's normal is there's such a range of normal. Like think of like walking. Lukash walked at 8 months old. Brecklin, the sleeper, walked at 17 months old, and they were both in the normal range,
Mm-hmm.
just at both ends.
Right.
You know, so kids are all really different, and so comparison is the thief of joy.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
So
Agreed.
you just have to not compare. It was hard not to compare, when like, why does she sleep so much? I'm not sleeping at all. But they both had different strengths. She was like a talker. She talked really early. Mine talked a little later, but mine walked early. And I mean, they're all just different. Um, let's see, what else do I have written on here? Um, One of the things, like if by two they're not falling asleep on their own, like one of the things like that they talk about in babysleep.com, and I remember reading back in the day, is like you want them to be able to kind of like soothe themselves back to sleep. That's kind of what you're working toward. And so one of the suggestions that they have, like when they're around two, if they're not like able to fall asleep without you touching them or physically helping them, just to be near them. So maybe like you are like, I can remember just like laying down and holding them till they fell asleep, but then you would kind of be like, okay, now I don't have to hold them, maybe I just have my hand on them. And then, okay, maybe now I'm just like laying next to them talking to them, and then now I'm sitting on the bed, like baby steps.
Right.
And now I'm sitting in a chair in the room, and maybe maybe you're talking, but now maybe you're just not talking, but you're there. Or
Right.
then you're maybe sitting outside the door. But you can do that without the whole crying it out thing. You can just gradually get them used to that they can do this on their own.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yes,
So
absolutely.
it's like fading away your physical support for them to fall asleep back on their own. That way when they do wake up, they know they can just fall asleep back on their own. Let's see, we talked about for the 2 to 3 year olds, if they decide they're not napping ever again for the rest of their life, you can just put in that time that this is quiet time, and that you I don't know, you lay down in the beanbag chair during this time, or you look at books during this time, or this is not a time for running around the house. This is just get them in the routine. Like in the daycares, what they'll do with the kids that don't sleep is they still have to like lay on the mat.
Right.
So, um, yeah. So
And
I
how
think
long should that time be? How long should that quiet time, do you think, be
I think it just depends on the kids, and what,
on the
what you
kid?
can get them to do. I wouldn't expect more than an hour. You know,
Okay.
might be like start out with maybe it's 5. I would say kind of build it up.
Right.
Maybe it's just a 5 minute quiet time, and then you work up to 15, and then you work up to half an hour. It depends on the kids. I'm not sure I would have ever accomplished that. If I don't remember if I did the quiet time. I remember thinking it was a good idea, like so many things. That just made me think of my friend Peg Stark. She taught she did like a learning group with the kids, like it was like um, playtime group, and I remember she had this great trick, and I thought, man, this is such a great trick, and then I never did it. But she said, if you got on the phone, that's when your kids just want all your attention. So she used to have a box that was toys that they only got to play with when she was on the phone. So it had this like novelty to get. I'm like, that is such a good idea.
Yeah, yeah.
But I never did it. I was too much in survival mode to be that organized. So those are the main things. I kind of gave you 3 different mom stories, and that it's all okay, and they're going to be different. And the main thing is that you take care of, instead of worrying about what people think, and judgments and all of that stuff. You have to remove all that stuff and go, what's working and what's getting us the most sleep,
Right.
and make sure it's safe, and go with that. Because sleep is the regenerative force of life, and that's what we need. And then
Right.
consider ruling out anything that might be medical if you really think, this just doesn't feel right, doesn't seem right. Because there are things that can affect, like blocking of the airway and reflux and things like that can cause problems. Think of all those sensory components that I talked about, the routine and the environment, and then also just what's normal. Like don't have an expectation of your child that's out of the developmental norms. Like some people think, well, oh, they're 6 months old. They should be able to sleep through the night. Well,
Mm-hmm.
that's not even normal. Waking 2 to 6 times a night is normal.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then try to get your support system in. And I know, especially right now, that's really hard because of the, um,
Pandemic.
like a lot of grandparents can't come in and be helpers right now. So it's extra hard right now, I think, for new moms. But even if it's just like getting some help during the day so you can get a nap, you know, um, just try to find some way to get some support. I remember one of my moms I was working with, she was so sleep deprived. She had like huge dark circles under her eyes. I mean, she just looked like she was going to just lose it any minute. And I'm like, you have to, and I mean tonight, you have to get somebody to take your baby for the night. You have to get a night's sleep. And I was like almost shaking her. She was a friend of mine too. And I'm like, because something terrible is going to happen if you don't, because
Right.
you're barely functioning. Like she probably shouldn't even been driving the car.
Right.
She was
Right.
just so sleep deprived. And I'm like, and she was hesitant to ask her mom or her mother-in-law, I think. I'm like, I don't care, just do it.
Mm-hmm.
You have to get somebody.
Right.
Like I think she felt like she was asking too much of them or whatever. I'm like, this isn't optional at this point. You're like a ticking time bomb. You have to get somebody to help you.
Right.
So anyway, it's hard. I mean, you gotta get your sleep because you start, you might do something um, dangerous if you don't,
Right.
you know.
Exactly. Exactly.
So
Exactly. Definitely.
you have to take care of yourself.
Hmm. So
So
the sleep training is not just for the baby or the infant or the toddler, it's for the mom and the
mhm.
dad and everyone else in the family too as well. So we gotta take care of ourselves and
Right, you
so
can't
we're
be.
okay.
You have to ask for help. And I realize that's not always an option, um, but it should be because there should be somebody in your life that you should be able to ask for help, and whether it's a neighbor or a family member or a friend, or I think it's really hard to ask for help, but
Absolutely.
but you got to do it. You got to get some
Do it.
sleep
Yeah, absolutely. Gotta get
because it's normal for them to wake up 2 to 6 times a night.
so yeah, mom needs sleep.
I've got to get to sleep. Yeah,
Needs sleep.
I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I have some questions here. This is
Okay.
from one of the members. She gave them to me a while ago, so I wanted to make sure I asked you since you are here doing the topic.
Sure.
So the first question is, how can she set up a sleep schedule and stick to it even on the weekends? Now she's a working mom, so she does work, and she wants to try to keep the schedule on the weekends as well. That's her question. First question.
I guess I'm not sure why that's hard to do.
I don't know. She didn't really go into the
Yeah.
details. Possibly, maybe she. Oh, I think she said she works on the weekends, so I'm not really sure. And I think her hours might be a little bit later, like
Uh-huh.
going toward the sleep. I don't know, but she just wanted to know
Like she's
how she
trying to
can
have
do
a
it.
routine for the baby, but then
Yeah.
her routine isn't the same, so it's harder.
Right. Right.
Well, I mean, if there isn't a way to do it with like support, like somebody else to help her keep the routine and the times the same, you could look at all those other things that we talked about. So all those other things that keep the routine the same. So it's not necessarily that the time is the same, but if those environmental things are the same every time, or the routine's the same every time, it's the same song, it's the same blankie, it's the same, there's a lot of things you can keep the same
Mhm.
even if you can't keep the exact time the same. Does that make
Okay.
sense?
Yep. That's makes sense. Yep.
Because I mean, it sounds like maybe it's not even possible. Like if her, because of when she's, but if she's working, somebody's with the child. So,
Somebody. Yeah. Somebody else
so
would
they
be
should be
there.
able to try to
To
keep
try to keep it the same, keep it
keep
consistent.
the schedule.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean,
Okay.
you can encourage them to keep the same schedule, but if for some reason you can't, there's a lot of things, everything else you can keep the same,
Hmm.
and that will help. And it's not actually any different for us adults. Like if you have, my husband has, he's always had a lot of problems with sleep, and they talk about sleep hygiene and sleep routines for adults and how important it is for us to do those things too. And then also, I guess I should throw in this little tip too, because a lot of people don't realize this. But it's really easy for us to like, oh, they're finally asleep, and then that's when we're getting on Facebook or looking at our phone and getting some like time to veg out and kind of, you know, just kind of have some time alone. But with your screen, the blue light on your screen makes your brain think that it's noon.
Mm.
So you will have trouble falling asleep. So um, I'm not saying don't do it, but you can get you can do the settings that take out the blue light, and you can do like it's like $20 to get like blue light blocking glasses.
Mhm.
Um, but if it's hard for you to wind down and actually get some good sleep
Mhm.
at night, because I remember sometimes I would stay up till like it's like I needed to sleep, but it's almost like I needed time more than I needed sleep because I didn't feel like I had any me time. So sometimes that's when I would craft and do things, and I would end up staying up kind of really late because it was like the only like peaceful time that was for myself.
For yourself, right? Exactly.
Um, so I'm not recommending that, but
Yeah.
I'm a night owl anyway, so that's kind of what sometimes I would do. But so, I'm old enough that we didn't have any of this temptation of Facebook and everything. There was no Facebook when my kids
Right.
were little,
Right.
20 years ago. So, but I would have been on it. I know I would have been. So I'm just saying, do the nighttime settings that take out the blue light or the glasses
Mhm.
if you're doing any kind of screen time yourself at night,
Right. Right.
because that will help you fall asleep. I thought that was really interesting because I had read um, that we do best when we can get in sync um, with the sun. So, like if we can expose ourselves to the morning light that's softer, the noon light that's harsher, and the evening light that's softer, our brain will, um, get into the rhythm of when we're supposed to wind down and fall asleep.
Right. Right.
And then they were talking about this blue light thing making your brain thinking it's noon.
Mhm.
So you're kind of getting out of your normal rhythm.
Okay. Okay. Her second question was how long can you let a baby cry to learn to self-soothe? And I guess it's probably dependent on the child or, you know,
Yeah,
I
I
guess
don't know.
I guess she wants a specific,
Yeah,
like how long should you let a baby
I
cry?
just don't know because everybody has their own feelings about it, and I'm just my own personal thing is I'm not a cry it out kind. I was more attachment parenting style, but my friend, I think she probably let him go for a long time. Um, but I don't know because it causes so much distress in the child. I just and the parent. I just don't know what the best if you're doing that method. Um, I don't know what the answer is for letting them cry. Um, it's hard. Yeah, that's a hard answer.
Yeah,
And I'm not judging either way. I'm just saying it's like it wasn't like something that um, it's not something that I personally am comfortable doing. My own nervous system couldn't have handled it, you know. Um, but my friend, I know she followed a specific method that you know, and it worked for her. So
yeah.
I don't really have an answer for that one.
Okay, that's all right.
And I'm not judging either way either,
Yeah, yeah,
because like I said, she had to do what worked for them. But I don't know. It's hard.
yeah, yeah, definitely. I guess as long as the child's needs are met and
Hmm.
I guess you check on them to make sure that they're okay, and then you just go from there. I guess as long as the child is safe and
Yeah.
I think safety first.
Yep.
With any
Definitely.
with
Always.
anything. Yeah.
Definitely safety first for
Mhm.
sure.
Okay. Is there any harm in not letting your baby cry for long periods of time before consoling them? So can
Harmon,
you,
like
yeah,
in other words, should you let him cry?
or like is there, I think she was saying, like not letting the baby cry, like if the baby cries for a second, should you rush in, or like a few minutes, should you
Oh,
rush
oh, I see. Well,
in and console them, or should you back off?
well, the thing is, it's like their only way to communicate, right? So, um, I think if they're like, eh, and then you're right there. I mean, you don't have to be that fast.
Right, 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 right. Give it a little time.
But is there communication, and you need to see what it is, is it their diaper? Is it their, that they're hungry? Do they need to burp? Is it, you kind of have to go through. But if you're like pretty sure that everything's okay, and um, yeah, that's a hard one. I I
Yeah,
think, but no, I mean, it's not going to do any damage if they, cry just for a couple minutes. It's not going to, you froze all of a sudden. That's, are we still on? Can you hear me? Hmm, I don't know if we're still connected. But anyway, yeah, you know, it's not going to do any harm if you don't get to there like in a nanosecond. You can give yourself a little bit of space. I don't know what's happening. All of a sudden, you're frozen. I'm gonna write a little chat here. Yep. So that's pretty much everything that I have. So unless there's some more questions, remember sleep is the regenerative force of life, and do what gets the most people the most sleep. And comparison is the thief of joy, so don't try to compare so much. I know we just want to do like the right thing, and it's just there's no single answer as to what's the right thing. The right thing is going to be what feels right to you, and that's okay, because there's always going to be somebody that's going to judge or have a different opinion. So you have to just kind of look at your own family situation and do what's best for you. So I'm going to go ahead and say goodbye, because I'm not sure if we're on anymore. And since you got frozen all of a sudden there, Lele. So take care. Bye-bye. Oh, maybe she's coming back on.
oh, hi, I'm here. Oh my
Hi.
gosh, I'm so sorry. My computer was like spinning wheel, spinning wheel, spinning wheel.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. My computer is old. Do forgive me. So,
Yeah, I just kind of kept talking. I'm like, oh, wait a minute,
thank
you're
you.
frozen. And then I just kind of did a little summary.
Thank you. I
So I
appreciate
don't
it.
know if it was still recording or not, but
Yeah, yeah, I think it was because I went on my phone and it was still kind of going, and then I could see. Oh, Darlene, hi, Darlene. I see that Darlene, from our friend from SSHC is on.
oh, hi,
So
cool.
hi. So Darlene, in the StreamYard, we just don't know it's you because you have to link yourself to StreamYard for some reason. But on my phone, I could see it's you through the group. So now I know who we're talking to. So hi, I'm glad you can hear us. Okay, so let's do that one last question, and then hopefully my computer won't go on the fritz again.
Okay.
Let me see. What is the harm, if any, of bathing baby every day as part of the bedtime routine?
Oh, of bathing?
Yeah, bathing. That was a question.
That's not a problem as long as their skin's doing okay.
Right. Okay. So that's a thumbs up then.
Yeah.
Bathe the baby, and then they get used to it. They like it,
Yeah.
and it kind of winds them down, right?
Yeah, if they like it and their skin's holding up okay, it's fine.
I love
We
it.
didn't talk about baby massage, but that was one
Oh,
that
yeah.
was one thing that one of my boys really loved it. I remember I was so sensitive. You know how like you're so sensitive?
Yeah.
And in the book it said you could use olive oil. So I'm like, oh good, I have olive oil. And my husband was making fun of me. He's like, he's not a salad. And I remember getting so mad at him because I was like so sensitive. I thought that was so like offensive.
Yeah. Oh,
And I'm like, I'm just trying to do something good.
I know. And I bet his skin was looking fantastic
Yeah.
with the olive oil. So that's
Yeah, I
all.
got this like baby massage book and it was so cute because he would just like coo when I would do it. And there was like these strokes that you would do kind of like to kind of help with their digestion. And I don't remember. It's been a long time, but I remember that that could be another nice routine sensory kind of thing, just to help their body relax to sleep. But baby's massage is really fun. That was really
Yeah.
cool. And you
Yeah.
can use olive oil.
Yes. Yes. Make it nice and shiny.
And then they can handle the bath every day.
Exactly. Have that protective layer. I love it. That's
He's
fantastic.
not a salad. You know how like you're so sensitive? I think that made me cry.
Yeah.
He was
It's,
just joking around.
it's like, no, please,
I'm
please.
just trying to do something good for the baby. That was probably like in the
Yeah.
that was definitely in the like home stretch of sleep deprivation because it was a good 5 years till I had a full night's sleep. Oh,
Wow.
that was
Wow.
hard.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, they
So
just were little normally developing babies that wake every 2 to 6 hours.
yes, yes, yes. Exactly. All right. So, Mary, I'm gonna end it here because I don't want my
Okay.
computer to shut down again. So I
Okay.
thank you so much, Mary. This was
Uh,
fantastic. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Do you
Thanks
have
for
any?
having me.
Yeah, of course, of course. I would love to have you again if there's anything else you wanted to discuss with the moms, especially since you do pediatric OT. I would love for you to come again and discuss what other things you'd want, maybe some things that they could do with their baby as like play activities or stuff like that, which would be
Sure.
nice. And just if anyone wanted to contact you, could you just tell them how they would get a hold of you? And you could also
Sure.
leave your information in the comment section as well. Just let them know how they can
Sure.
contact you.
Well, I'll just put my email in the comment section.
Okay,
It's just
sure.
my name, Mary Kostka, and I'm pretty old, so it's at AOL.com. That shows my age.
I'm
I never
still at
changed
AOL.
it.
I'm still at AOL.com too.
You are? Okay. I'm like, why change it? I
Yeah.
never.
Listen, I'm
Oh,
still
and you know
looking
what? I'm
for
going
it.
to put a Facebook group in here they can be in. I have a sensory smart families group.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely. Add that in there. And, is there any last words that you want to say? Any words of wisdom before we go?
No, just that they're two favorite quotes of mine that sleep is the regenerative force of life and comparison is the thief of joy. So,
Awesome. Awesome.
it's okay to just you really have to pay attention to what is right for you and not worry so much about but so and so says this and so says this or what will this person think because you are never going to win that way. There I mean everybody has a different opinion and you're the one that knows what's working the best for your family.
Right. Exactly.
One thing I really liked about that sleep, do you remember what the website was? Oh, Baby Sleep.
Babysleep.com. Babysleep.com.
Babysleep.com. I loved how they said, depending on your family goals, like they always kind of went back to what's your goal, what's important for you, instead of do it this way, do it this way. They
Right.
kind of gave you like different, they just always kind of went back to what's your goal, like
Hmm.
what's important for you. Because like I would have, um, I don't know, a lot of things I did, it didn't end up the way I thought I was going to do them, like all of us, you focus on what feels right and what works.
Right.
And
Exactly. Awesome. That's awesome. Thank you. That's
okay.
Thank you for the resources and everything. Thanks for the
Sure.
conversation. And
I can't wait to meet you in
yes,
person.
I know. Can't wait. It's coming up soon. So that'd be awesome.
I know.
Oh, and Darlene says, you ladies are a lot of fun. Nice seeing you.
Oh, nice,
Thank
nice.
you, Darlene. Nice to see you too.
Thanks, Darlene. Can't
Yeah,
wait to meet you too.
yes, exactly. All right. Thanks again so much for everything,
Okay.
Mary. All right. Okay. Bye, ladies. Have a great, great evening and day, morning, whatever it may be for you.
Yeah.
All right. Bye bye. Thanks again.
Bye.